Mengistu, Butcher of Addis Ababa. Mengistu, also known as the Butcher of Addis Ababa, was the leader of the Derg, a military regime that ruled Ethiopia from 1974 to 1991 and carried out a brutal repression campaign known as the Red Terror. He ruled for 17 years, and his attempt to transform the country into a Soviet-style socialist paradise instead resulted in a brutal reign of terror. Following the overthrow of Emperor Haile Selassie in 1974, the Derg seized power, effectively ending the Solomonic dynasty that had ruled Ethiopia since the 13th century. Mengistu removed Derg rivals for power and established himself as Ethiopia's dictator, attempting to modernize the country's tribal economy through Marxist-Leninist-inspired policies like nationalization and land redistribution. He was responsible for the deaths of about 500,000 people during the infamous Red Terror campaign, which primarily occurred in Tigray, Addis Ababa, and Gondar. Colonel Mengistu Haile Mariam, in addition to the Red Terror, is accused of eradicating entire communities in Tigray by uprooting hundreds of thousands of people from their villages and towns and dumping them in southern Ethiopia in the name of settlement. Hello viewers, and welcome to another episode on the channel where we shall be taking a look at the life and brain of Mengistu Haile Mariam, also known as the Butcher of Addis Ababa. But before we get right into this, if you're new to the channel, ensure to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and if you find our content interesting or educative, you can hit that like button as well. Mengistu's early life. Mengistu's youth and background have been the subject of rumors and even made-up stories linking him to Ethiopia's royal bloodline, although genuine information on his family and upbringing is scarce. However, Ethiopia's leadership had long discriminated against the darker-skinned blacks like himself, and this discrimination may have had the basis for some of his subsequent punishing acts as leader. He was born in Walaita, a province in southern Ethiopia, in 1937. His father was a soldier, while his mother worked as a maid, and according to some sources, he traveled to Addis Ababa with his mother when he was just a child and grew up in the household of a renowned nobleman named Raskebede Tesema. His first taste of power. Mengistu entered the army as a young man and served as a private before entering Ethiopia's Holy Trade Military Academy as a foot soldier. He earned the rank of second lieutenant after graduating in 1966, and in the late 60s, he was one of the 4,000 Ethiopian military men transferred to the US for advanced military training. By 1974, Mengistu had risen to the rank of major and had demonstrated good leadership qualities, making him popular among his fellow junior officers and the 3rd Division rank and file. These abilities helped him advance to the top of Ethiopia's military administration during the revolution's political vacuum. He swiftly ascended through the ranks of the Ethiopian army after his return. Regarding himself as Emperor Haile Selassie, he now found himself as a god on earth and dished out favors and resources to a selected group of nobles. Ethiopia had been afflicted by frequent droughts for years before Selassie, and its arable land was a unique, valuable resource. Nearly all of Ethiopia's property was controlled by nobles by the time Mengistu was a child, and peasants worked in these estates in conditions that resembled slavery. His rise to power and affluence. The new 126-member Provisional Military Advisory Council, or DERC, nationalized several significant foreign enterprises and announced Ethiopian take-them policy in the summer of 1974. Mengistu was elected head of the PMAC in July 1974 and was named first vice chairman when the PMAC was formally constituted in September, a post he kept until February 1977, after he seized complete control. Between 1974 and 1977, 3 years later, as the PMAC's agenda became more socialist in orientation, causing an eruption to power conflicts, with higher-ranking and more old-school officers being forced out by younger and more politically radical officers, Mengistu Haile Mariam emerged as the most effective and cruel of these officers. Under his guidance, Socialist Ethiopia's military government implemented a series of social and economic changes, including a massive land reform in 1975 and widespread nationalization of foreign-owned banks, industries, insurance firms, and agricultural enterprises. In 1976, he was promoted to lieutenant colonel, and in February 1977, he was named commander-in-chief of the Ethiopian Armed Forces. The launch of Red Terror. Mengistu remained in control as leader of the Derg, but solidified his authority in February 1977, when he was appointed commander-in-chief of the Ethiopian Armed Forces. He appeared at a gathering 2 months later, promising that all adversaries of Ethiopia's historical revolution would be brought to justice, and he crushed bottles he claimed were filled with blood to emphasize his point. With that speech, the Ethiopian Red Terror of 1977 to 1978 began. and hundreds of alleged government opponents were arrested, jailed without trial, tortured, and even murdered. The victims were mostly university students and administrators who had expressed dissatisfaction with Mengistu's Soviet-style revolution's speed or tune. The elements of the Red Terror were inspired by Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution in China, which began a decade earlier and followed a well-defined plan of action to find, punish, and correct what was considered middle-class and hence counter-revolutionary ideology. The fall of Mengistu. According to some estimates, up to 500,000 people died as a result of the Red Terror. Thousands more fled the country, with some settling in other Horn of African countries and others creating the first substantial Ethiopian communities in the United States, Canada, and Europe. Mengistu's opponents within Ethiopia, as well as in Somalia, Sudan, and other neighboring countries, joined various armed groups formed to oppose the Derg and its hash rule. But these groups had competing ideologies and goals ranging from continuing the socialist revolution to restoring the monarchy. Beginning in 1983, Ethiopia faced a devastating famine, maybe worse than the one that helped bring Haile Selassie's imperial reign to an end. Mengistu's administration responded by turning to the West for food and technical assistance, while maintaining strong military and diplomatic connections with the former Soviet Union. The issues of persistent hunger in the north, the ongoing war in Eritrea, and the Ethiopian economy's overall lack of growth pushed Mengistu to rely increasingly heavily on military power and close political supporters. Unrest in the nation persisted as Mengistu maintained authority through merciless actions with opposing fighters. Eventually, rebel parties won decisive wins over his political groupings, and in 1991, Mengistu resigned and fled the capital of Addis Ababa into exile. Convicted in absentia. That directive came from Ethiopia's post-Derg administration, which initiated an investigation into the Red Terror era immediately after seizing power in 1991. Mengistu, along with 73 other Derg members, were prosecuted in absentia for genocide. Only then were the exact details of Haile Selassie's death disclosed. As many had long suspected, Mengistu had ordered the emperor's execution, and the 83-year-old king was suffocated with a pillow and then buried beneath a bathroom floor in one of his palaces. Mengistu's trial began in 1994, and it included 8,000 pages of allegations and evidence trying him to 2,000 individual murders. Mengistu was declared guilty by the Ethiopian High Court on December 12, 2006, but because Zimbabwe refuses to cooperate with the extradition order, he remains in his Harare residence. The rebel groups that came out to fight the Derg would subsequently play a significant role in molding the Horn of Africa's political environment. Eritrea obtained independence in 1991, but factions that had taken root in Somalia, Sudan, and other bordering nations grew in strength or split off, and these groups continued to wield power by force. That brings us to the end of the video, and if you found the video informative enough, please give us a thumbs up, and if you love such content, ensure to subscribe and turn on notifications so as to be notified on our next uploads. Thanks for watching.